We are 39 days out from the Democratic National Convention. Joining us today is Chicago DNC Host Executive Committee Director, Christy George. We're biased, but we all feel that way, right? Democratic National Convention Committee Executive Director, Alex Hornbrook. And City of Chicago Chief Operating Officer, John Roberson. Dan, I'm just gonna hope you get that same applause. I am now, by the directions that are on this sheet of paper, to welcome our CEO, Dan Gibbons, who will serve as a moderator, and to ask those folks to come up.
Thank you, Jackie. Hello. I'm Dan. Welcome to City Club. Welcome back to City Club, so many of you. I do want to mention, just as we get underway here, I've got a number of pre-submitted questions because we have such an interested, informed audience that we had a whole host of questions that I'll weave in to this conversation along the way. But I do want to ask, if anyone does have questions that you have not submitted, please do so on your table or the blue pieces of paper. Please get those written out legibly so I can read them. And then our staff is here and can just kind of hold them up. We'll get them up here. We're not too formal here at the City Club. And on that note, keep eating, enjoy your lunch. We're going to have a nice conversation and hope to have you all as part of it and we got a lot to talk about. So let's just dive right in. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. There's a lot to touch on. But, you know, it's what did you say, 39 days? We were talking 39 days. It's coming. There's a lot of excitement. This is Chicago's time to shine. You know, we have a whole week in the spotlight. Just came off of NASCAR. The whole country was watching that. But there's also a lot of anxiety. There's world events that we can't control, and there are certainly protests, right? We were unfortunately reminded this weekend of the violence in Chicago. It's a problem. It was a rough weekend for a lot of people. We have some issues. We have some anxiety over that. Looking forward to the convention. So I just want to clear the air a bit first. Are we going to be ready? Is Chicago going to be ready for this? John, I'm going to direct that towards you as the city representative. Is Chicago ready? Are we going to throw this party the right way?
Sure. So thanks, Dan, and thanks to the City Club for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here. It's been a while since I've spoken before City Club. I think the last time I was here, I had hair. Now I have this bald, shiny head that's reflecting all this light. So let me...
But it's glistening.
Isn't it? It's glistening. Glowing.
In the spotlight that's on Chicago.
Right.
Spotlight.
So let me be very clear and let me be very straightforward. The city of Chicago is ready. Period. And I think that who was here in 1996 for the convention? I see a lot of familiar faces. Here's what I will tell you. I think that the city of Chicago is more prepared for the 2024 DNC than it was prepared for the 1996 DNC. And it is because of the lessons that we have learned. There is no city, not in the country, in the world, that has the depth of experience, that has the infrastructure, that has the expertise in managing large-scale events like the city of Chicago. Our Chicago Police Department, that is led by Superintendent Snelling, has taken our police department over these last months through training that is grounded in constitutional policing. We are going to keep the city safe. We are not going to tolerate vandalism. We are not going to tolerate destruction of our property. What we are going to do is to make sure that every single visitor, delegate or not, will be safe. We're going to make sure that those who are going to engage in the full expression of their First and Fourth Amendment rights are going to be safe. And we're going to do that against the backdrop of providing public safety for 2.7 million people in the city of Chicago, some of whom, that's right. Because here's the thing, folks. Some of the folks that are a part of that 2.7 million could care less that the DNC is here. What they want to do is they want to get up every day and they want to go about their business and go about living. They want to go to work. They want to drop their kids off at summer camp. And so all that we have done over these months since Mayor Johnson has come into office, and I want to be absolutely clear that Mayor Johnson has been clear with us and has been very clear with me that he wants to ensure that we have an exciting and safe DNC, and that is exactly what we're going to deliver.
Thank you, John. Alex, I'd like to go to you next and ask a little bit about what's going on inside the convention, and maybe inside the convention hall. I know you guys are underway. Your offices are there. You've kind of, but take us into the DNC for a second. How's everybody looking at Chicago? How's the excitement building for this convention? Are there concerns? What's the talk on the inside from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you also for having us, and thank you for John and everything that the city has done. You know, I don't think that Mayor Johnson necessarily counted on this task when he was running for mayor, but he, you know, we came in right after that election, and he just like immediately was there with his team, totally focused, have been a really great partner for us, so we really appreciate that. We're excited in the convention, as you noted, in the arena. We just took over, 2 weeks ago? We started our lease at the United Center, which is a fabulous facility. And so as you're driving by, you may actually start to see some of the structures that are going up around it. Some of that is actually for the Windy City Smokeout, which I know we're really glad we were able to, that's really cool too. And we were really glad we were able to work out that, space sharing so that could go on, because that's a really fun event for people in the city. But also there's some structures.
Lots happening in this city. Yeah, this is good to note.
Because Chicago is a city that can handle a lot, right? That's why we're here. Right. So anyways, yeah, we were building a lot of structures there. We were just in there yesterday. A lot of the suites starting to get, modified for our friends in the press to be able to use them as their broadcast suites. And, soon our producers will start the construction on the literal as well as the figurative, stage that we're going to be building here in the United Center for the president and the party to tell their story directly to the American people. So a lot of work, a lot of hard hats, a lot of tools, lots going on in the arena. But there's a lot else, a lot more that goes into it. Christy and I were just yesterday, I don't know, time has no meaning at 39 days out, but recently we were at a meeting. I saw Glenn Needham to Chicago here, and one of our other most incredible supportive partners with the... we were with Chicago at a meeting with all of our contracted hotels, and people kind of don't think about the hotels. The hotels are so important, and another really, huge reason why we're here in Chicago. I know we did the show of hands of people who were in '96, but anyone travel to a Democratic National Convention in another city? Anybody? Yeah. So we've had amazing cities, beautiful, wonderful, vibrant cities. I am heavily biased because I led the site selection that picked Chicago. But in a lot of our other previous cities, we just don't have a lot of cities in America, even big cities, tourism cities, who have the hotel footprint that Chicago does. And so we've had delegates who are traveling for an hour plus in previous conventions just to get to the convention itself. And so the fact that people don't have to cross state lines to go to sleep at night is seriously, it's a huge deal. And so when we tell people every single one of our contracted hotels are within 5 miles of the United Center, that's huge. And it really takes a load off of people's minds. And so as people are thinking about Chicago, they're thinking about how convenient it is, and all of the infrastructure that you have here. We've had our state party chairs and leadership out here twice now, once last fall in September, and then again this spring. And so when they come, they're just continually impressed by the infrastructure that's in place, but the literal infrastructure, the hotels, the transportation, all that, but also the human infrastructure, right? The workforce, the union workforce here in Chicago, and the welcome that they get. And every time they have come, those state party leaders have come. Every time the press has come, we've had them out twice. People leave here more excited to come back in August, and I think that's hopefully also an effect that we're creating when we have 50,000 visitors coming to the city in August. Is we're creating 50,000 more ambassadors for Chicago once they leave.
That's music to so many ears in this room, right? As we just continue this amazing comeback as a city. Choose Chicago, as you noted, is here, and hotels, restaurants, businesses, construction. You mentioned the structures are being built, construction companies, the telecom companies. This touches everybody, right? And so it's so great to, so thank you for recognizing all that and for that explanation. Christy, let's switch to you a little bit in the host committee. As you understand, everyone has a different role in this, right? And they're obviously all working together. John with the City of Chicago and the Mayor's Office, Alex with the DNC, and Christy with the host committee, the private committee formed to welcome the DNC to Chicago. So could you explain to us, we've had a busy year, but how about a busy week? I know you hit your volunteer mark.
Yep.
I know you're doing well on fundraising. Yep. What's got to happen between now and 39 and a half days? Because I think the clock's ticking. 39 days.
Thank you for the half.
The 38 and a half? Is that how it goes the other way?
I'm
Yeah.
going to take what I can get on
Sure.
that. But no, you're absolutely right. The host committee has been very busy over the last year. We've had an incredible opportunity to partner with a number of corporates, organized labor, and other folks that have just been critical to our fundraising efforts, some of which are in this room. So I'm just going to thank all of you now for all of your support, because it has been a long road. We announced on April 11th of 2023, and we could not do it without the stakeholders that are in this room. So thank you so much for all of your support. We did hit our volunteer goal, 12,000 volunteers, which is insane.
Congratulations on that.
What I love so much about that is that we have every single zip code in the city of Chicago represented. 75% of our volunteers are from the city of Chicago, which means this city is so excited. We have people that are 16 years old. We have people that are 100 years old that have signed up to volunteer. Literally every single age group is represented in our volunteer corps.
Awesome.
Which is wild and amazing. And we will use all of them. But we have to operationalize that volunteer program. It's huge. We'll have over 6,000 volunteers just inside of the perimeters alone. And then outside of that, we have to have volunteers that are at the airports. We have to have volunteers that are at our CTA stations. We will be leveraging CTA for our delegate travel, for all sorts of things. And we want to encourage folks to utilize CTA. We will need volunteers to help with wayfinding. We will need volunteers to be at our hotels. Our hotel community has been amazing and wonderful, as has our partners at Choose Chicago. Choose Chicago has, in fact, given their ambassadors to us to then staff at all of the hotels to be with all of the delegates, all of the visitors that are coming from out of town, so that they can be walking, talking billboards about how wonderful our city is, and to make sure that they get out into all of the neighborhoods of the city. One thing that I'm so proud to have worked on with Choose Chicago is we've built out these cultural itineraries that identifies all of the different neighborhood assets all throughout the city. It could be our cultural institutions downtown in the museum campus, it could be out in all of the various neighborhoods. They're highlighting all of our amazing restaurants. It has really been just an incredible collaboration, and I'm so grateful to Glenn, Rich Gamble, and all of the team. Rose, I see you back there, and all of the folks at Choose Chicago for that. So in addition to building all of that out, we know that there will be hundreds, if not thousands of ancillary events that are going to be happening during DNC week, which we are very excited about because that means money coming into the city, which is what all of us want, right? That's that 150 to 200 million in economic impact that we can't wait to get into our coffers. And so from that perspective, we want to work in partnership, and we are working in partnership with delegates, with allied groups, donors, other folks that are coming in from out of town that will be hosting those ancillary events, and we are actively partnering with them, pairing them with different venues all throughout the city, giving them our preferred vendor list, pointing them to our vendor directory. We have over 2,800 vendors in our vendor directory. 70% of them are diverse, and what we're focused on is getting that money that's coming in from out of town, getting it to local Chicago businesses. That's what we're focused on. That's what we'll be doing for the next 39 days.
Great. Great. Well, I think there's so many folks in this room that want to be a part of that, or that are already a part of that, I assume. I see a lot of heads nodding. So I think so much of what we're doing today also is just making sure that those dots are all connected and making sure that everyone does do their part, because there's a lot of pride in this city. And when you think back to 96, I was one of those. I don't think I was 16 yet. I was 15. Sorry, I'm doing the math. I couldn't drive yet, but somehow or another, I was asked to get a coffee for, I think it was George Stephanopoulos or somebody was, and that I could point to that as part of my start in some of this. So encourage all of you who have young folks, some young folks that are in the room, to just do just a little bit and get and take the next step from there. It's a great city to do that, and it's a great convention for that. John, what's as we talk about infrastructure, I mean, you're so busy every day dealing with everything in the city, every issue, it's a different one every day, and putting Mayor Johnson's agenda forward on the infrastructure side. What sorts of things are we going to see when the convention leaves that we can maybe point to? I mean, I speaking of 96, I look at Madison Avenue and the stars, that I think got a fresh coat of paint, or I hope they get a fresh coat of paint. A plug for that.
They did. He made sure of that.
Very good. That's been there since 96, right? It's a small reminder, but what are some things that are happening because of the convention that may be a lasting impact on Chicago?
So, Mayor Johnson has several North Stars. The first, affordable housing, mental health, community safety. And these are things that guide our work. And so when we thought about the investments that we were going to make for the DNC, we wanted to make sure that we were going to do investments that were going to last long beyond the DNC event, that it needed to benefit the citizens of the city of Chicago. And so something very simple, trees. If you take a look around the city of Chicago, in the neighborhoods that have had no or very little investment, the tree canopy in those communities is minimal, creating heat islands. The residents who live in those communities end up paying a higher utility cost than other areas of the city that have tree canopies. Why? Because they're trying to keep their homes cool. We have planted over 500 trees throughout the city of Chicago because we want to make sure that as we are beautifying the city, we want there to be a direct benefit for the residents of our city. And it is an equity issue. People should not pay a higher rate for electricity costs simply based upon their zip code. We have to make sure that we're making the types of investments that are going to have long-term impact. Second thing, the Damon Street station on the Green Line, over $80 million in investment. Now, we look at that and we say, wow, that's a great investment, great infrastructure project. It is going to provide greater access for residents on the west side of Chicago to jobs, to the public accommodations and the amenities of our city as a result of that. But here's the other thing that it does. It gives the city the opportunity to use that station as a focal point to now look in and around that station to say, how can we build more affordable housing so that we have equitable, transit-oriented development And as we do that, as everyone knows, the more rooftops you have, then comes commercial, then comes retail, then comes the creation of jobs. And because of an $80 million investment on the west side that is not only going to help our delegates get from downtown to the United Center, it is going to have the long-lasting effect of being a catalyst for economic development in a community that has seen under and disinvestment for decades. So when people say, well, you guys are spending all this money and it's just for the DNC, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. Anybody ever host a backyard barbecue? Right? If you're gonna host—
Show of hands, come on.
Yeah.
It's Chicago.
When you host things at your house, you cut the grass, don't you? You plant flowers. You may look at the seat cushions on the patio furniture and say, I want brand new pads. And if you're rich like Steve Davis, you just get all new furniture. The point is, when you are entertaining company, you want to put forth your best effort. You want your home to look nice because you're proud of it. It doesn't mean that day to day that you're not doing the things to make your home nice, but you put that extra emphasis because you want people to walk away with the experience. You want them to walk away feeling like, when I went to Steve's house, it was phenomenal. He had all types of things. That's what we want people to do with the city of Chicago. We want to create the type of experience through our beautification efforts, through infrastructure, repairing sidewalks and curbs and gutters, and painting light poles. The investments that we are making to beautify our city are going to pay dividends down the road. To Christy's point, there may be delegates who, because of the business of the DNC, may not have the opportunity to move around the city like they would like. But if we give them the experience, at the end of the DNC, they will say, I didn't get a chance to see everything, but Chicago is a wonderful city. And so I'm going to bring my family back next summer.
Yep.
And we're going to enjoy this city, and we're going to enjoy all of the amenities and accommodations that this city has to offer. That is what the investment does. So it's not just beautifying for the purpose of the DNC. It is about the expanded and exponential impact that our investments are going to make. The last thing, the mayor believes in investing in people. And so for the DNC, we worked with our labor partners, and I am so excited about this. We were able to institute a junior laborer program where we were able to take young people. We were able to take 70 young people and make them junior laborers, and now they're going to work alongside many of the city employees that are a part of the work of beautifying our city and participating in our infrastructure improvements. Now I'm going to tell you why that's important, because there may be some people that will say, well, that's only 70 jobs. I was born on the south side of Chicago. Up until the age of 18, I had never flown on a plane, had never been anywhere. The first plane that I flew on was a plane that was going to take me to San Antonio, Texas, to basic training. I went to basic training, served my country, came back, and that was at 18 years old. By the time, hold on, I'm going somewhere with this. A young black kid from the south side of Chicago whose parents grew up and were raised in Inglewood on 65th and Carpenter and 66th and Morgan, who had never been on a plane prior to that. At the age of 36, I was the commissioner of aviation and running O'Hare and Midway airports. These jobs can provide transformational opportunities to change the trajectory of these young people's lives. So when we talk about legacy, it's not just about the physical, folks. That's why the mayor has always continued to say that we have to invest in people. So when we talk about the investments that we're making for the DNC, yes, we're going to beautify. Yes, we're going to make sure that our delegates have a good time. But we also have to make sure that the long-lasting impact is going to help to change the trajectory and create the vibrancy for the future of our city.
I think that piece on building out the human infrastructure, that was something that I know my friend Jack Lavin over at the Chicagoland Chamber, he forecasted a long time ago. And we took that very, very seriously. Between Jack and Jamie Harrison at the DNC, we started thinking through, when we got our first contracts, how we could put in internships and mentorships with all of our vendors. So we've got 14 different RFPs that are out. 10 of them have been awarded. All of those 10 are going to diverse firms, which is wild and insane and amazing. But part of that piece is that each one of them are required to have internship and mentorships as part of all of their work. So as you talk about building out the infrastructure for not just the physical, but also building in the human infrastructure, that's absolutely part of everything that we're thinking about doing.
Great, and that's you answered a question that I really was excited to get to from Don. No, it's great because there are so many more, and I do appreciate the question. That the infrastructure question came from John Dingles, from a City Club member. So I'd like to mention we do appreciate these questions. It's not just me coming up with this stuff. And keep them coming. One question I did just come up with, though, as you were talking about barbecues and hosting and being proud Chicagoans and showing off our city, who are we hosting? And maybe Alex, could you talk for a couple minutes? Give us some names, give us some examples, but who are we going to see around this city that we don't usually see? And there's some exciting faces in there, some exciting names. I'm sure you don't know everybody, but give us a sample of that, would you?
Some of them we do. Yeah, no, so we have about 5,000 official delegates to the convention. So these are the people who are actually coming and doing the real work of the party. And these folks, it includes a lot of the elected officials and some of the bold-faced names that people might recognize, and you're bumping in, walking around downtown during the convention week. But one thing that I think is really kind of important and interesting, at least to me, is that the vast majority of those delegates are not governors and senators. They're just regular people who care a lot about what's going on in their community, in their state, in their country. And so they are dedicating their time and their resources to, it's not an easy thing. These delegates, they come here, they're taking their time off of work, right? They're paying their own way to come here. For a lot of these folks, working class folks, this is probably the only, vacation trip that they're going to get to take this year. So they're going to bring their families, like John was talking about. They're going to, and hopefully their families are going to come, and they're going to go off and they're going to go to the museums, and they're going to go to, do all the great things that you have in Chicago while the delegates are doing their work. So a lot of them are just really dedicated, passionate people who care and want to participate in the democratic process. But then also the governors, the senators, and all the people that you see on TV, MSNBC, and CNN all the time. In addition to that, we've got probably around 15,000 members of the media, domestic and international. And so that's, again, something that we think is a real opportunity for the city of Chicago, because you're going to have this huge spotlight. We're a big convention. There are probably other conventions that might have, literally larger number of attendees overall, but the media presence at ours is probably one of the biggest, most focused that you're going to get from almost any other event in the country. So we're going to have 15,000 members of the national, international media right here in Chicago, and then all sorts of other people who just want to be in the mix, right? They just want to be here because it's exciting. They want to go. They might not have a credential to go to the United Center at night, but they're going to go to all these other events, receptions, panels, luncheons, things that, hopefully everybody here will also have the opportunity to take advantage of. So it's going to be a really wide array of people, and that's also something that, makes this event really exciting and special, because it's not just, 50,000 people who all do and say and think the exact same thing.
So on the Chicago side of it, and I'll give you a break for a second, but that's helpful, because I think there's so many people here in this room and that I'm out talking with that maybe they're not going to be a volunteer, maybe they're not going to drive somebody, maybe they're not a $1 million donor that's going to be in the convention hall, or a delegate that's going to cast a vote. How can everybody else, and like Rose Horcher asked this from Choose Chicago, between now and then, how can we, civic leaders, emerging leaders, young leaders, leaders of community groups, others, how can we participate and and do more and put Chicago's best foot forward. You mentioned, for instance, 15,000 media. I mean, they got a lot of space to fill, right? They want some visuals, they want to highlight things, and there's so much positive here to highlight. How can we take advantage of that? Christy, can I start with you? Unless either one of you want to step in, we'll give Alex a break.
I think one of the things that I would personally love to see, and I know we've talked about, is having all of the business stakeholders, business organizations, folks like City Club, host events during that week. We would love to see events happening all over the city of Chicago. I mean, I know we've talked about having, activations in every single one of the neighborhoods as much as we possibly can. And so if that means our friends over at the IMD having some activations, we would love to see that happening. At Chicagoland Chamber, we'd love to see that happening as well. I already know True Chicago's doing its activation, so we're excited about that. And I know City Club is planning a set of events as well. But those are the things that we would like to see. We would like to see the business industry roundtables. We would like to see that intersection between the electeds as well as industries, so that conversation about how to spark engagement, how to make sure that folks are civically engaged, so that happens. John, what do you think?
Absolutely. So we've had a lot of conversations about wanting to activate all across the 77 communities, and I'm going to tell you why. Given the national dynamic in terms of the public discourse that is going on today, why not Chicago? Why wouldn't this be the place where we can host the most democratic activity of selecting someone to run for the highest office in the land and still be the same city that provides the room and space for the full-throated expression of First Amendment rights? And to do it in this moment. While the world is watching, we have the opportunity as the city to show people how to do it the right way. That you can have and in both, and that you should have and in both. In this moment, we have the ability to uplift all of the things that we talk about around our kitchen tables. We need activation to get people engaged. I'm not going to sit here and tell you who to vote for, Joe Biden. What I'm going to say is...
City Club is non-biased and non-partisan. Disclaimer.
But what I'm going to say is we need to get people involved in this public discourse. Our democracy is at stake. Where we choose to go from here will be greatly determined by the decisions that we make in November. So regardless to what your persuasion is or your ideology, we need for Chicago to be actively engaged. We have hosted, this will be the 26th time that we have hosted a political convention, more than any other city in the country. So again, why not Chicago in this moment? Why not Chicago being the amplification of the very things that we all care about? We have to show up, folks, and we need each and every single one of you to be actively engaged in creating that activation, not just downtown, in community. Because it's in community where people work, they live, they play, they raise their families. That's where they need to hear the message that it is important and it is worth it to be involved in this endeavor.
You hit on so much there, John. So much. Democracy, picking our future president. This is an easy one. Alex, maybe I'll start with you. Who is the candidate? And who is the candidate going to be at this convention?
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are our nominees.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. City Club of Chicago. There is talk, obviously, this last week. There's been plenty of talk. Let's take the names out of it. Let's take the candidates out of it. Let's take even this year out of it. What would happen if there was a last-minute change? I imagine the whole world watching Chicago, the whole country's eyes on this city. If there were to be something different about how this process that how we imagine it's going to happen, and if something changes. You mentioned 26 conventions back in the day, Abraham Lincoln, and the conventions were where things were really determined. Now it seems to be a little more policy driven, and it's known who the candidate's going to be. What happens if at this convention in this city, if there is a difference in the candidate for whatever reason? How does that look?
Well, that's not something that we're planning on. But there are going to be a lot of things that are different, and that are different from this convention versus what you saw in 1996 or in other conventions even more recently from now. I mean, look at it's 2024, right? And people interact with the world in a different way, right? So we know people consume information, particularly younger Americans, younger voters consume information in a different way. So there's a lot of people who are going to be watching on TV, right? Every night, we hope, tuning into the proceedings, but we know that also a huge majority of voters are going to consume the vast majority of it on something like this. And so we're doing a lot of different stuff to make sure on the technological side that we're ready to communicate with people on their device, however they're choosing to engage with our program. We also know that not everyone is going to be watching or even on their phone from a traditional media outlet. Lots of folks get their news these days from content creators on the internet, folks on YouTube, folks on Instagram, all these other platforms I don't even really know about. And so for the first time in a political convention ever this year, we've started a content creator credentialing process. So just the same way that Craig and Marianne and Lynn back there can apply for a credential as a traditional media and have access to spaces and support and information and communication with our team, we're setting up a parallel process, or really the same process, so that these content creators who may be heavily focused on news or politics, or maybe they're not really at all, but they have a huge reach and they are the primary platform through which a lot of young Americans who feel very disengaged from our system and our process, that's how they engage with the world and with news and getting information. So we put out this content creator credential application, which just closed recently, had a tremendous response. And so we're going to have this whole creator core here that are going to have the same opportunities as traditional media, who are still very important, but they're going to have that same access to dedicated spaces, to making sure that they have a direct channel to convention staff to understand what's going on, to have the context of what's going on, and to have opportunities to interact with delegates, with surrogates, with elected officials like the mayor, hopefully the governor, other folks who are going to be participating in the program, because we know we have to rethink and go above and beyond to reach people where they are, because what's different about 2024 is voters and how they are consuming and participating in the process.
So fewer of those smoke-filled rooms where some of those things were decided at hotels.
There's no smoking in the United Center.
There we go. John, you also, in a minute ago, unless you were, no, okay.
No.
And you also hit on the First Amendment a couple times. Looking back again to historically, every convention has protesters. We talked about this, the world issues, global issues that are going on, and the assumption that there will be plenty of protesters. In one, Judy Thornburg asked, how do you learn where demonstrators plan to gather? And I'd like to just use that question to ask just that. Where are demonstrations going to happen? How are we going to handle that? You touched on it earlier, but I think there's a lot of questions specifically we'd like to have events. City Club, we have some ideas like we talked about. There's a little bit of uncertainty. Can I have an event here? Can people get there? And a lot of it comes down to where will these protests take place? And I know you're coming out eventually with maps of perimeters and all of that. So we'll wait to see that. But can you get into where these protests are going to happen, ideally, or not knowing a whole lot, and how we can manage around that?
Sure. So, look, we know that there are going to be protests. We know that there are people who want to have the full expression of their First Amendment rights. And for a mayor that comes out of labor, that comes out of the movement, he embraces that. He encourages it. Like I said, we want that to happen, but we're not going to tolerate vandalism. We're not going to tolerate destruction of property. And so as we have gone through the planning, we have gone through a number of iterations of plans. And so what I will tell you is that we have an entire staff over at OEMC, Office of Emergency Management and Communications, in the Chicago Police Department, people with very deep expertise and experience going all the way back to NATO. We were able to handle that. We've used that experience. We've taken those best practices. And so we have thought about, as was famously said by a former defense secretary, we know that there are known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. And we have the type of personnel that work for the city of Chicago, as morbid as it may sound, who spend a great deal of time thinking about those unknown unknowns. You worry when you are not prepared. We are not worried because we are prepared. That doesn't mean that we don't have concerns, and it doesn't mean that we're not thinking about those things. But we know that because of our preparation and because of our training, that whatever protest is going to take place, we are going to be absolutely ready for it. We have demonstrated that even over the course of this year. There have been protests around Gaza here in the city of Chicago, numbering in the thousands. Whether we're talking about at our local universities, Michigan Avenue, and yet we were able to handle those expressions in a very orderly way that did not result in destruction of property and didn't result in loss of life. That's important. That comes from the training that we have put our men and women of the Chicago Police Department, the training that they have been receiving based upon the experiences that we have seen from 2020, from NATO and all the other events that we have held. And so there's still some litigation that is going on as it relates to how some of these sites are going to be identified, but we are going to make sure that we are identifying sites so that people have the ability to have that full expression. People have submitted permits for parades. It is going to be done in conjunction with the protocols that our Chicago Police Department and the U.S. Secret Service are going to define in terms of what our security parameters are, and that will be information that we'll be sharing very soon. But look, we believe that it is important to provide an opportunity for people to express themselves, for them to be safe in that expression from people who may disagree with them. Because the expression that may happen at these sites may be views that are different from what is going to be going on in the United Center. And guess what? That's okay. There's nothing to be afraid of. We've been here before. We've done this before. We're not new to this, we're true to this. This is what we do. And that's why the city of Chicago is able to come into this moment fully confident and prepared to meet this moment.
And I would add also that, we talked about, we're also fully confident that the city is prepared for this moment. I would say, I touched earlier on the hotels, on the arena, the infrastructure. That's all building up into the larger point, which is that it's not an accident that we're here, right, in Chicago. This is another reason that, we were very confident that this is something that Chicago would be able to handle, because it does handle huge events all the time. And would add, in addition to, the police department, John referenced the United States Secret Service, who, the conventions are designated as national security special events, which places the Secret Service as the primary coordinating law enforcement agency to work with the Chicago Police Department and the various other state, local, and federal agencies here. They've been here planning as long as we have, and we've just been tremendously impressed with Superintendent Snelling and the CPD, the city, and the partnership that they have with the federal agencies, all the training that they're doing, and so we feel really good about where we're going here. But also, I would just echo John's point that we are. It's sort of a cliche people use, but we are the Big Tent Party, and we know that there are a lot of people who have different views on a whole variety of issues, and that's okay, and we embrace that. I think that is going to be, a fairly stark contrast to the other event that you're going to see up the road next week in Milwaukee, where we have a party that actively foments chaos and violence and exclusion. That's not what we're about in the Democratic Party. That's not what we're about in the city of Chicago. And so we're looking forward to a really strong and safe and successful event for everybody.
But we of course hope that they use some of our hotel rooms and spend some money in Chicago on the way up to Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They probably will.
I'm sure. I hope so. So I'm not going to be able to get to all of these. Let's. It's 1:11. Let's maybe close with a question here from City Club member Rebecca Lawson from Crown Family Philanthropies, because I think it also just shows, again, who this room is, who the City Club is. This is philanthropy, this is Choose Chicago, this is World Business Chicago, this is CEOs, the Better Government Association, I mean, you name it, the Illinois Medical District, universities. You look at companies, attractions, Navy Pier is here, look, 360 Chicago. Everyone in this room wants to do their part. University clubs here, you name it. Everyone wants to do their part. They're in this room for all sorts of reasons. Philanthropy is a big piece of what Chicago makes, you know, what has made Chicago what it is and what's allowed us to get to be able to host this convention. So part of that statement, thank you for doing your part and for being here and for asking all these great questions. So Rebecca's question is, what do you see as the most needed role for Chicago's philanthropists in supporting a safe and productive DNC on our home turf? So that's with regards to philanthropy, but maybe take a bigger step back and just, what can everybody here do one more time as we get to the 38-day mark and closer?
I'll start and then I can give it to folks, but I think from my perspective, from the host committee's perspective, we want a bright, shining, and vibrant Chicago during that week. We want events all over the city. We want to attract our delegates outside of not just downtown. We want to get them out into the neighborhoods so that they can fall in love with the Chicago that we all in this room know and love and want to make sure that those folks come back. We want them to have their future conventions here. We will have people from, you know, these 50,000 visitors. They are representing advocacy organizations, allied groups, businesses from all over the country, all over the world. We'll also have, and one just footnote here, the National Democratic Institute is also hosting all of their foreign programming that's happening. So they will have a whole set of programming for their consul generals that are coming into town, and they want to observe the proceedings at the United Center as well. So we'll have so much attention here. We'll have all of the media attention here, and we have to show off our city the best way that we can. So everybody, if you are a part of an organization, if you have a business, please consider hosting an event. Please let the host committee know that you are hosting an event. We can get that information out to the delegates, out to the allied organizations, out to the advocacy groups to attract folks to your events. And in addition to all of that, be our partner. Get the word out about how great Chicago is. Be a positive messenger. If you want to partner with us to even talk to media, to talk to these different organizations that are out here, we'd be happy to do that with you. But what we want to just make sure that everybody knows is that this city is an amazing city. We are a historic city. We do historic things in this city. This will be our 26th time hosting a political convention, our 12th Democratic National Convention. We make history here. So let's band together. Let's make it an amazing convention week, not just for the 50,000 people that are coming into town, but for everybody that's in this city that deserves to have a damn good time.
This is my partner in crime.
So it's not often that I get both of my work husbands on the stage with me together, all right? So I got John here, who I spend so much time with, and Alex here, who he's so sick of me by now. But
All the rest of your time.
No, all the rest of my time goes to Alex, but it is very nice to be here.
So, the Bible says faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. How can you say that you love Chicago and it not manifest itself in very real and tangible ways? The very things that Christy has talked about, engaging and being a partner in this, it needs to manifest itself. There are haters. There are people, and there is a narrative out there who believe that Chicago is not ready for this moment. And sometimes as I'm reading things and seeing things, it can be very frustrating. I have my work wives here, Kenya Merritt and Lori Lipson, Deputy Mayor for Infrastructure and Business and Economic Development. And each and every single day we go about this work. And sometimes when we're hearing about all of the negative things in that narrative, it can be frustrating, right? And so I have something that hangs on the outside of my office that I read every single day, that when I hear all of the negative nabobs and people who aren't manifesting, I read it, and it's by Kipling. And it says, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired of waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't deal in hate, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. I want you to leave here amplifying the message. I want you to leave here and allow your faith and your love of our city to manifest itself in very real ways. We used to have boosters like Jerry Roper, Jim Tyree, Earl Neal, people who loved the city, and they manifested that love in very real, tangible ways. We need for the people in this room to go forth and deliver the message and manifest it in a very real way.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor John.
Okay, next time I'm not going after you. Just so. But we're really, our folks, they're just, honestly, they're really excited to come do this work. I mean, our party, our president, were robbed of this opportunity 4 years ago, as we obviously were all, robbed of so much during the pandemic. And so there's a real pent up energy and excitement about coming together in the community of the convention to do this really important work. And there's a very specific excitement and energy to come together and do it in Chicago. Yeah. And we're really, really grateful for all of the support from the city, from the host committee, but everybody in this room and across the city has been really tremendous. So thank you, and we're going to have a really, really great party in 38 and a half days.
38 and a half days. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you, Alex from the DNC. Thank you, John from the city. Thank you, Christy from the host committee. Thanks to Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker, Senators Duckworth and Durbin getting this here to Chicago, Mayor Lightfoot, everyone whose efforts were, for so long to get this convention here. It's going to be, I believe, an amazing experience and time for us to shine as a city. Thank you so much for conveying that to all these great civic leaders. Thank you all for being here at City Club, for stepping up, for showing up, and do all that you're going to do in the next 38 days and 38 years. It's great to have you all at City Club. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful summer week. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.